BLM sale program. In a spending bill, they put through a revision to the Wild Horse and Burro Protection Act that says any horse and burro caught that's over 10 years old or has been offered for adoption 3 times unsuccessfully must be sold. Okay, they must be sold. So we go back to the federal protection. Once they get the big U.S. thing, they lose their federal protection. We've bought, because we have their money has to exchange hands to meet the letter of the law. I want to say close to 700 now. We took in 100 just 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. So we're very active with that. And then we're in talks with Canyonlands National Park and Parasham, which is part of the Grand Canyon. They have burros, but it's under National Park Service, so they've asked us to step in. So why us? Why do I have the audacity to think I can fix when nobody else can? Well, for one thing, I've got the staff to do it. We run about 25 to 30 full-time employees. We are a federally licensed DOT trucking company with 4 transport rigs, each capable of carrying 20 to 30 donkeys each. We've got the money to do it. Now, as a fundraiser, don't let that leave this room. I don't want everybody to know I got it, but my job is to make sure that we're fully funded, and I will not rescue an animal that I can't guarantee its safety for life. So I have the money to start this. I have to keep raising it through next year and the year after and the year after. And then the capacity. I was once asked, what's the most animals we could take in? And I know this sounds outrageous, but it's almost infinite. Our main ranch can hold up to 1,000 donkeys easily. We have 2 transportation hubs that are corporate ran, one in Virginia, one out in Arizona. They can hold probably 400 each. And then we have sanctuaries. And right now, you're going to see, I keep looking back at my wife because she's got a better memory. We have about 20 sanctuaries right now?
Yeah, I think it's 19.
19 sanctuaries that right now are housed only about 1,400. We could double that easily, and we can expand because we have more people that want us to lease their land for sanctuary than we have donkeys to put on it. So part of this project is some of these burros aren't ready for domestic life. 2 of them chased my guys out of the pen as they were trying to load them in the trailer. And my guys are professional donkey wranglers, okay? They're aggressive. So what we'll do with them is we'll put them out on sanctuary where they still get health care. They still get the shots, deworming, post-trim, and everything else. But in the interim, they think they're wild. They're on usually about 500 acres. And so they still think they're wild. It's a nice transition. All right, I'm pushing it. Okay. So our main facility is San Angelo, Texas, and then we built the 2 transportation hubs. And the key to this project is adoption. I don't want to be the BLM with 50,000 animals in storage. I don't want that. I want to find them homes. And so the key to that is we have over 35 satellite adoption centers across the country. I'm in Southern California up to the Canadian border in Washington. We're just opening another in New England. I think that will be the 5th just in the New England area. We're down at the tip of Florida and all points in between. We can adopt donkeys wherever people want them. We don't adopt many in Texas, but I can adopt donkeys all across the country, and that is key to this whole thing. I threw in a couple areas of our ranch. Those paddocks each can easily hold 100 donkeys each. The building way out by itself is our quarantine and medical barn that we just finished. And then the bottom right, that's our adoption training area. And way over to the right, that's where we keep all the jacks. They're in a separate grazing field. They're under a different lock. Everything is locked. Only certain people have certain keys. So they're under a different key. So there's nobody's making babies out on our ranch. This particular area, where it says Kelly to Mule, that's the only thing that goes up against the jacks. The Jennies have another area that's fenced on the other side. So now all boys and girls getting together on our place. All right, how do we catch them? And that's my corgi bean. He thought he was saving my life there. Bait and water trap is the best and least stressful part of the thing. Basically, we use what's called a finger gate, and they're these long fingers. And we leave them open, we bait inside, they come and go as they please, and slowly we close them. And so they can see their way in, but they can't see their way out. No ropes, no nothing, back a trailer up, away we go. That's our preferred method. Drones, we can do some amazing things with drones now, not just spotting them, but moving them. Mounted wranglers, and then of course helicopters. Helicopters are not our favorite thing, but on Fort Irwin, we have no choice because there's unexploded ordnance. It's a tank range. And I can't put people out on a tank range around bombs. So we're gonna have to get the donkeys out, and that's the safest way we can do it. Okay, we have this website, burromanagement.com, and we can offer a lot of services. Burrow health, ecological impact, diversifying the gene pool. A lot of these are very isolated groups. So they're inbreeding and because they started from small gene pools. Nuisance removal, I'll tell you a funny story. I literally was sitting in a room with NASA. And these were some of the smartest individuals I have ever been around in my life. And I was forced into watching an hour-long PowerPoint presentation of everything they did to try to dissuade burros. And it was hysterical. You have all these NASA engineers tying little tinsel on trees. You had them playing low frequency noises and high frequency noises. I mean, it just went on and on. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. And they said, well, what would you have done? I said, I'd put a water trap right there and taken them home. It would have been that simple. They cut down 20 trees. So what did the burros do? They moved into the alcoves of all their doorways and wouldn't move. They couldn't get in or out of the building because once the burros realized they weren't going to be hurt, they stood there as shady. And not far from NASA, Fort Irwin has a drone runway, and it's unmanned. Well, in the wintertime, that asphalt radiates heat, and so it would be full of burros. So the drones couldn't land. So they had to keep soldiers out there around the clock, and they were under strict orders not to hurt the burros. It got to the point where it would take 4 soldiers per burro to pick them up and carry them off the ground. So there are some burros that are a nuisance. Overall population control is always going to be an issue, and then we have some plans to do some radio collar tracking, just like the one that went down from Irwin to Mojave. I'd like to see their migration patterns. Some of you might remember this gentleman from last year. This is Eric Lundgren. He spoke. He's an ecologist, PhD student. He's heading up our ecology studies. Up until now, the National Park Service would not allow research that did not reinforce their position. With the addition of our organization, we're just going to take a hard look at the science. And that's all. We just want to see realistically what they're doing, what kind of impact they have. And Eric brings up a good point. I love Death Valley, one of my favorite places to be. And there's a lot more water in Death Valley than people would think. But it's covered in vegetation. You'll see a tree and all these reeds, and you can't see the water. And unless you have a thriving burro population, they will tunnel into that and get to the water. Well, then that tunnel can be used for bighorn sheep, squirrels, raccoons, coyotes, everybody can benefit. Remove the burros, no access to the water. So these are the things we're going to look at. So the positive and the negative. And something else that you can't help but look at is the burros have been out there for over 100 years. This is a constantly evolving ecosystem out there. So the last 100 years, we brought in a big herbivore. Well, the plants with animals, the birds, the trees, the coyotes, everything is adapted over the last 100 years. So what happens when now all the burros, one of the biggest animal out there, is removed? What's going to happen? It's nobody knows. I mean, it's detrimental. But anyway, we're going to study, and we'll be able to share all those results with you. And you might recognize this gentleman. I stole that off your Facebook page, I think. And I always like putting all those initials after his name. I have no idea what it means, but that's pretty impressive. But we have we're doing a lot of blood type work. There's just untold things that we can do. It's just never been done because there's never been an interest, there's never been money for it. So, for instance, as we're drawing blood for the Coggins that we have to get before we can move them out of the state, we're taking extra blood. Through Cornell, I guess, we're doing some kind of study.
Cornell, some to Cornell, some to Davis, depending on who had to test for what.
So, fortunately, I'm not a veterinarian, but I know a lot of really good ones, so. Okay, so what happens? We gotta catch it. Now, right now, on the Mojave Preserve, we've only caught 13, but those are kind of catch as catch can. We're not putting the full court press down there. We started catching Death Valley a week ago Friday, and we've caught 54 as of this morning. We expect to get at least another 50 in the next week before we pull out of that area. So we got to transport them to a staging area. We have a staging area set up at Furnace Creek, if y'all are familiar at all with Death Valley. We have another one set up in Barstow. So they have to go there, they get identified. Now what we do is we use a subcutaneous microchip in the neck. We use an RFID ear tag button because you can physically look at it and see the number. And then we use a freeze brand. And our freeze brand is a simple PV. All my senior staff got them. Solidarity. But we never sell our donkeys. They always belong to us. And we don't want to see our donkeys get sold down the road and eventually end up in an auction or worse. So that's why they're branded. So we do the blood work, we get the paperwork, and we transport it. The Jennies and foals, for the most part, are going to stay out in the western region of our organization. The Jacks will get moved to San Angelo. Twice per year, we do castrations with Texas A&M fourth-year vet students. They're actually coming out next week.
This coming week, yeah.
This coming week. And so we always do it in the cooler months, so we do it in the fall and in the spring. So the ones that are sitting out here now, they won't get cut till the spring, but that's all right. That'd be a lot of stress to be captured, to be transported, and then be cut on, so we'll give them time to acclimate. We do castrate everything, unless it's a really, really, really old jack, then we have a special place that we can put them where they can just live out their lives. But other than that, we cut them all. As I said, adoption is really, really crucial. So all of our burros are trained. They'll accept a halter, they'll walk on lead, they'll pick up their feet. We have a big training staff that works with them. We use a grading system, A through F. And it's just, I don't want to adopt a wild animal with somebody, then they're not going to touch it, and then it's going to get even wilder, and it's not going to be able to have its hooves done. The biggest thing we find on animal cruelty side is overgrown hooves, because people don't work with them. It's not automatic like with horses, where you work with your horse every day. People don't do it, they're afraid of donkeys. So we want to make sure that we give you a big pet. So the training is crucial. Adoption, as we talked about, and then the ones that aren't suitable for adoption will go to sanctuary for a while. And we evaluate those donkeys regularly. They get looked at least 4 times a year by our staff, and then we have other people that look in on the in-between. But they get reevaluated to see if maybe they're ready to come in and go through training. I already talked about that. And the sanctuaries. They get regular vaccines, they get regular deworming. We do a lot of fecal studies. We do before and after, before to see what we're treating, after to make sure we treated it. And we do that not only on the ranch, but on all our sanctuaries. Our sanctuaries actually range from West Texas all the way into Louisiana. And we have one gentleman, I'll show you the next slide. This is Zach. He's the one who keeps up with the donkeys. He has a degree in range management, so he can check the health of the range, make sure we're not overgrazing any particular one. But it gives the donkeys a sense of freedom. And they kind of make that transition from being wild to understanding a little bit more about domestic life while they're out there. And you can tell from this picture, he's got a portable chute, and he is trimming that donkey literally in the middle of a sanctuary. He's not in a corral. And I brought up that $2,000 a year the BLM spends of y'all's money. It costs us $200 a year to keep these donkeys out on sanctuary. And that's with full medical care, that's with supervision, that's with everything we do. And that's all donor money. Because I don't know if I mentioned, we don't take government money. Even if it was available, I wouldn't take it. Okay, so here's my project cost. Let's get back to the fact that I'm a professional fundraiser. This is expensive. There's nothing about it that isn't expensive. I can tell you it costs $1,000 for me to rescue a donkey. That's what it costs. So if we go out and do a 50 donkey rescue from some order, that's $50,000. Just what it is. That's transportation, that's medical, that's identification, that's feeding it, that's training it, whatever, that's $1,000. I know that because I've done it over 10,000 times. Catching a donkey is a different story. It might cost us $200 in a contractor's time to catch it, or $2,000. And it all depends on what stage of the program we're in. In the early, right now, you would Butte Valley, there was 100 donkeys out there. They're plentiful. We go out for the next round, there's going to be there might only be 20, and they're going to be a lot more spread out. So it's a lot more expensive, a lot more labor intensive to bring them in. So we're averaged $15 million over the next 10 years. It's a lot of money. Quarantine, and this kind of takes care of all the processing, the vaccines, the deworming, everything that goes into us holding them. The transportation we talked about, we move these things all around the country. The training, the feeding, because again, we have staff involved, castrations, advertising. So so if you look at it, it's about $2.7 million per year for the next 10 years, and that is only the wild burro program. That's not all the other domestic rescues that we do all across the country, all the law enforcement work we do. Our plate was full before I took all this on, or convinced my trustees to let me take all this on. So this is additional funds that we're going to have to go out and raise. So what can you do? If you're in this room, you obviously appreciate donkeys. That's not my problem, that's our problem. All of our problems. They built the country. I think they deserve better than what they're getting. So you can donate early and often. You can advocate. Probably half my job is just talking to people about how cool donkeys are, what they've contributed to our society, what their personalities are like, everything. Let's make some more donkey lovers out there. Volunteer. There's a lot of ways you can volunteer. Like I said, we're all across the country, so wherever you are, there's chances are I've got a satellite adoption center near you where you can go help out. You can become a satellite adoption center yourself. If you have some room, it's a really cool program. You take about 10 of our donkeys at a time. You use our rules, our applications. We cover the feed, all the expense while it's with you, and we can move a lot more donkeys. The more facilities we have, the more communities we can get into, the more donkeys we can move through. You can sponsor. As we talked about the ones that are going out on sanctuary, we have a sponsorship program where you can sponsor one of those guys out there. And then of course you can adopt. Again, early and often. How many you want? We all know about the hive trade. I don't know if anybody really covered it here, but it's completely unsustainable. Let's just say the government numbers are right. And just for Fort Irwin, China Lake, and Death Valley, the number's over 10,000 burros. That's their numbers, not mine. That's what they told me. Might not a solution be to sell those things to China? And might not somebody at some point think and put those dots together? So that's why I'm involved now, before it gets to that point. That's terrible. So that's it. How'd I do? So I know I covered everything so thoroughly, but I'm sure there might be some questions. Yes, ma'am.
Did you say you don't adopt in Texas?
We try, but in West Texas, if you want a donkey, your neighbor will give you 10.
Mark, I know that there's a lot of areas where donkeys seem to be a nuisance and they're getting killed on roads and things, but I've never really understood why they have to take one in Death Valley.
It is Park Service policy. Same with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, it is their policy. I can't defend their policy for them, but it's their policy. They have a 0 horse and burro policy. And my job is, as an animal rescuer, I am not a lobbyist, I'm not an animal activist, so it's not my job to change the policy. It's my job, if that's the policy, I'll make sure they're safe. If I can do research along the way that can disprove their policy and maybe change it down the road, I will do that. But as it stands right now, they say they gotta go. I wanna make sure that it's done right.
I just don't, I've never really heard a good explanation why they have to be out of.
Read that Sanchez 74 report on burromanagement.com, and that's what it's based on. Yes, ma'am. To this day, they still point at that like it's the Bible. But they're not protected there. On the Bureau of Land Management lands and U.S. forestry lands. Well, they are, but that's a management plan because they've established how many, and I don't want to speak for the BLM.
Now, the problem is nobody can hear the question. So we're hearing you talk, but we don't know what the question was. So if you could just repeat it.
Okay, I'm sorry. She asked, number one, if their policy of removal has ever been questioned since 1974. And it hasn't. They still hold that up like it's the gospel. And then she asked basically about the federally protected, not federally protected, and the BLMs. And the and she, I got a terrible memory. You asked that they're removing, the BLMs are removing theirs as well, but that's different. The Park Service says 0. The BLM has their biologists come in and say, okay, this area can hold 1,000. Anything over that number that gets removed. But again, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I deal with them, and that's what how it's done. Yes, sir.
What do you do with all the sanctuaries with the donkeys that die of natural causes, the agreement?
No, sir. Typically out there, we leave them. We're talking huge, to get them would be almost impossible.
Observation.
Yes, sir. In some places, we do compost, which is the preferred method in a lot of places. But if we euthanize, of course, we don't, if we use euthanasia drugs, they have to be buried. They have to be disposed of.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
In the last couple of sessions, we talked with the lady that had the discussion about things that are going on in China. You should get with her and the donkeys that die using China's philosophy. You can cremate those donkeys, make good luck charms out of them, sell them, and you'll make a lot of money.
I think my donor base would not like that. Yes, sir.
Overpopulation, we can call it. So that's one point. I don't need an answer, but it's like around the world, some breeds are in extinction. And the reason they're in extinction there because some of those that are so inbred, they cannot breed successfully through what they have. And then we have an overpopulation all over here. And I talked to the experts a while ago because I want to use some of these genes over the other donkeys. I want to ship semen to Europe or places in order they can go out of the inbreeding and outbreed with something because these original, they are majoneros or majoneros from Spain. They came in the second voyage of Cristobal Colon. These are what the miners and the Spanish use. And then these genes are really valuable genetically, but you guys don't sell semen. I don't need to ask you the question. You don't sell semen or anything like that. You guys cut everything and you be careful to don't cut that.
That's correct. We castrate everything. As a nonprofit, I walk a very thin line on what my donors will and will not tolerate, and breeding is one. Now, if, for instance, you and I got together and we came up with, okay, these are 3 excellent examples of
Yeah, and they can
They-
be
I
placed,
might- I-
they can
I
be
would
placed in
sell
Central
that to
South
trustees.
America, can be placed in many places, which you guys don't get up to there. You guys are just doing the work around here.
Yeah.
Some other area is interesting to me that I'm an equine practitioner, I'm an old repro guy, and many of the clients I have through the years, I said, what happened to your horse farm? And they say, we get tired of the horses, we went to the BLM land with the trailer and opened the gate of the trailer and they went down. So a bunch of those Mustangs, they're crossed with a bunch of horses that people have been releasing for years. That don't happen in donkeys. At all, people don't release donkeys, but the number of horses is more, and then they blame the donkeys for everything.
I would agree with that.
So that's not fair. I don't have questions, I just want to collaborate with you because you make sense in a bunch of stuff. I don't make sense of road, you can help me. Thank you.
And another big issue that I didn't even address is Caribbean donkeys.
Yeah.
There's way overpopulations on some Caribbean. There's one island in particular, Nevis. It's 36 square miles. It has somewhere near 3,000 donkeys. If we were on Nevis right now, there'd probably be 2 donkeys standing in this auditorium. Literally, you go get gas, you move the donkey out of your way. It's that bad, and there's no advocate on the island. No advocate.
Hi, my name is Kayla. Right here.
Oh,
I'm from the Donkey Sanctuary of Canada. It's my first year at the symposium here, so I know a little bit about you and I enjoyed watching your presentation. I wanted to ask if we could take just a tiny moment of our time to ask about some of your experience dealing with jacks. So from where we come from, it's not obviously on quite the large scale that you do, and we experience some problems with having to have them in close locations with jennies and things like that that probably are what cause a lot of our issues with them. But I wanted to know, when you have jacks, for example, like two-part question, I guess. When you castrate, what do you consider an old age of castrating, and how do you do that based on their different ages? Is it all out in the field, or so forth? And after you castrate them, do you have a correlation of sense of how long it takes them time to become not so jack-like?
misery loves company. We cut them all at the same time, typically the same day or 2-day period. And so they're all there coming out of anesthesia, their head down, drool hanging out of their mouth, miserable, and everybody gets along. They just seem to.
They can boo-boo together.
But as far as age goes, it has to be a really old, over 20 donkey, and it would have to be in poor health. And
Like over 20, is that what you
yeah,
said?
but it's all done on a very individualized basis. If it's a 20-year-old that's rearing up and fighting everybody, we're gonna cut it. And then our facility is set up, our jack areas, we have a main jack area, we have a little jack area, we have an infirm jack area. So everybody can go in a place where we don't put the little guys in where they have to defend themselves against the big guys.
Do you find like there's any correlation with the amount of time that they take to calm down after that period, or do you think you manage it well enough in a way that you don't really experience that after because they don't experience jennies and their different size differences and things like that?
Well, if they're really jacky and they're in with a bunch of other aggressive jacks, they're going to learn their place pretty quickly. And jacks to me are the easiest ones to turn around, especially wild jacks. The ones that chase my guys out of the pen, they're already in. And it's because they're not afraid. They don't have any fear in them. They have aggression. And so if you can overcome the aggression with kindness, then by the time they're gelding, you've already bridged that gap. But a lot of us are being hands-on.
Nice presentation. Just a comment for her. I'm an equine theologian. I work at the University of Illinois. One of the things that you can do to help the transition between a stud-like and a jack and to a castrated animal, you can give some progesterone as well, double dose, either regimen, double dose once a day. I usually do that like for about 2 weeks. If they don't improve after 2 weeks, then I usually enter with estrogen as well, so that helps them to calm down quite a bit. So it helps with the transition. So you can give injectable progesterone once a week. So about you give like about 2 mL per 100 pounds, twice, like the dose, and then you give every week, or you can give regimen once a day. And I give it like a little try. If they don't improve after like 2 weeks, then I enter with some estrogen as well, about 10 milligrams of estradiol cypionate once a week. So that helps that transition between I'm the man. Now I don't care about anything else. I'm a asexual individual. So like that helps quite a bit actually.
You find that's long-term?
Just to help with the transition. So sometimes some geldings, some horses, I keep them for 2 months, 3 months, and then some jacks as well, the same thing. So, but it helps quite a bit.
And if you need to get Igor's information for your veterinarian, his email is on the Hoover app, so you can just contact him.
Something real quick, I adopt some jennies from your program, and they're really good. One became pregnant, was already pregnant when, and gestate in the last three parts of the gestation in my place, and I have a jack. So the bottom line is, somebody wants semen, yeah, I can send you chilled semen or frozen. So we can keep it, because probably somebody have interest. That's it. So sorry for extending this.
While Victor's delivering the microphone, I think some of this comes down, this is spoiler alert for the panel discussion. Some of this comes down to definitions of what we see as wild and desirable and valuable, and what the National Park Service sees as that, and what the BLM sees, and so on and so forth. So a lot of this stuff is not science, it's human opinions. So.
Yes.
All right, I've got a quick question on any of these grazing lands or these areas that you have MOUs with. Are they also collaboratively having grazing leases out for range cows or sheep on the same spots?
No, these are only our donkeys. They're not commingled with anything.
Oh, so where you're pulling these donkeys from, though, there are no ranging leases?
Oh, on the
That's
park.
what I'm talking about in this program here.
Yeah, no, the only thing out there is bighorn sheep, coyotes, mountain lions.
All the good natural stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
A really cool tarantula. We saw a tarantula the other day. It was really cool.
Hi, I live in the Sequoia National Forest right next to it, up in the Sierra Nevadas. And I was wondering why they haven't migrated up there. If there's such a big population in the desert, do they just not like the higher elevations? Or can they go there? We could sure use them eating the underbrush so we don't have all these big fires.
You know what? Nobody's really done studies on where they're going and why they're going. But for instance, Butte Valley is year-round. It's beautiful. Even if it's 120 in Death Valley proper, it won't be over 100 in Butte Valley. So they're just happy there. It's a great place. But they do continually range further. So to get into this place, there's two ways. The hard way, where you really got to have a good four-wheel drive, or the less hard way. And the less hard way leads into Death Valley proper, where Badwater is, Furnace Creek, Death Valley proper.